Hello and welcome to CS169.1 X Software as a Service. So I just thought I'd put together a little overview video for you because the overview video that Armando and Dave do for their live Berkeley class is full of specifics about how that class operates, and it's not specific to the MOOC experience. So I've got pretty much the same slides as Armando and Dave. What you'll be seeing coming up in a minute in the following sections are videos of live recordings from Armando and Dave to their Berkeley class, and sometimes they'll be referring specifically to the MOOC, sometimes they'll be referring specifically to the Berkeley class. But I thought great to start with something specific for you, the MOOCers. How is this class all going to work for you? So the key course goal really is that you're going to be learning software engineering principles. The process of doing software engineering, of generating clean code that's maintainable, beautiful, and you do that through understanding the challenges and opportunities and open problems in this new arena of software as a service. So rather than buying software from a shop and on a CD or taking that home and installing it on your computer, getting it over the wire, having kind of a server, a service available, like Gmail or Google Maps or what have you. So a second course goal, as well as understanding all those principles, is to see how a software as a service project can be taken from conception to public deployment. So it starts with solving some kind of non-technical problem. We need to provide something to some sort of customer. There's thinking about what are we going to build on the server side. Excuse me. This course will of course focus on Ruby on Rails. In the first part, there will be bits of HTML, CSS, and there's more client-side Ajax and JavaScript in the second part of the course coming up in part 2. Then finally deploy it to the cloud, for example, using the hosting service Heroku, and then meet your non-technical customers' needs through that public deployment. That's there's an exciting combination here of both getting a real application out there, but also understanding software engineering principles, which will last forever, even if the technologies in the stack change later on. So talking about the course organization, the grading is largely focused on the homework assignments. We've got 30% on the quizzes. We'll drop the lowest scoring quiz. Do have a look at the syllabus for more information about this. But a typical week, we're going to have lectures released on a Tuesday, assignments and quizzes on a Thursday, and then you've got 11 days until the Monday, the kind of week after, to get your assignments and quizzes in. So what are the prerequisites for the course? This is not a beginning programming course. If you really haven't done programming before, or you've done very little programming before, then there are a lot of other great programming, introductory programming courses out there. You do really need to know object-oriented programming to take this course. If the term object-oriented doesn't really mean anything to you, then I think maybe consider doing a different class to this one. You don't need to know Ruby or Rails in advance of this class. This class we're basically assuming that you've learned one object-oriented programming language, such as Java or C# or something already. And if you are reasonably familiar with an object-oriented programming language, and you're thinking, well, do I need to know Ruby or Rails already? No, you'll kind of learn Ruby through the process of doing this course. So that should be fine. What would be very helpful is if you've already got experience with a version control system like Git, version control hosting like GitHub, and cloud hosting like Heroku, then that's going to make your whole experience of the course much easier. As you'll be aware, we've had a couple of sort of intro weeks with refresher material and access to various online resources to help you, polish your skills or get introduced to these things. Basically, previous runs of the course, it's been very clear that students who are unfamiliar with these technologies are, generally have a lot more trouble. So we want to give you as much chance as we can to kind of polish your skills, bring yourself up to a basic level there. Anyway, so lots of online resources available on that. We've got the textbook has associated websites, and we have a link for students there, and I think I've got that up over here. Yeah, so you can see lots of different sort of tutorials and links to free online resources about that. It's feel free to suggest more on the forums, add them to the wiki. There's so much stuff out there, it's difficult for us to cover it all, but those online resources are really going to make it much more attractable for you to address some of these sort of learning some of the associated technologies that we're not going to focus on as the key part of the course. And the key part of the course is really the software engineering principles, Rails, and so forth. So so as regards to the programming homeworks, there's a lot of research that shows doing the programming in pairs is great for the learning. It may feel like you're going slow to begin with, but actually the knowledge and the understanding is getting tamped in and getting really locked into your brain. So the pair programming not required, We can't force anybody to do the pair programming, but I'd certainly very strongly encourage you to try it out, and see, give it a couple of sessions and see how it accelerates your learning. We've got the Agile Ventures community supporting the pair programming. More about that soon. But there's tens of thousands of students doing the course. We've got a community, distributed community all around the world. There's this exciting possibility that, even though there may not be somebody available in your time zone, somebody a couple of time zones away, it may just be the right time for them. So, it's a exciting worldwide programming, real-time pairing community thing. Anyway, more about that before too long. More specifically on the programming, as I mentioned, so it's the Monday midnight is the due time that's UTC. So that's going to be like, we'll have to set it like 23:59 UTC. That's the time in the UK. Not chosen because I happen to be in the UK, although I do. That's edX. All their times are in UTC. And we've got a late policy. You can have 75% credit of up to a week late, and then unfortunately 0 if you're later than a week. You can still submit after the due date and after the the 1 week. But do watch out for that. If you didn't submit at all, that's fine. You can always play around and sort of see if you would have got some credit for it by submitting it later. But if you submitted before the due date, don't resubmit after the due date, because unfortunately it will knock down your score to your last submitted rather than your highest. Unfortunately, edX doesn't currently allow us to get around that. Many of these assignments, they're going to be deployed using Cloud Computing, push them onto Heroku, and we'll evaluate them there. So moving on, let me just mention the edX honor code. Some people might often question about the pair programming. Isn't that kind of like, that's sort of cheating, isn't it? I think if you read the edX honor code, which you will have all signed up to by signing up for this class, you'll see that completing the midterms and final exams for your course, which is the quizzes for us, is that you will submit your own work. And you're not going to engage in any activity that would dishonestly improve your results, and so on and so forth. If you feel embarrassed about anything that you might be doing, you think like, I wouldn't want other people to know that I was sharing this information or that information, then yes, it's probably not a good idea. However, notice explicitly in the edX honor code is that you should collaborate with others on the lecture videos, the exercises, and the homework and labs, such as pair programming. Discuss the other general concepts and materials in each course. We really want you to collaborate on the homework assignments. There's, collaboration is not just sharing the complete solution with whoever. Yeah, that's not going to help anybody's learning. What we want is a situation where, you get into pairs, or even experiment with threes. It's more complicated, but, where you're talking about the code together and you're generating the code collaboratively. And that's a process that's going to be fantastic for your learning. Really do give it a try. And everybody's on board with, accelerating your learning in this fashion. So, in terms of completing the assignments, the software to use, we really, really strongly recommend using Cloud9. We've got some instructions there online. Cloud9, another software as a service online. It's really, really solid. You will need a reasonable internet connection. Obviously, you're free to try and install things locally on your own computer. But there's only so much support we can give to debugging a manual installation on so many different systems. Cloud9, everything works there, so do prefer to use that if at all possible. I also mentioned the textbook, which, full disclosure, I'm now the editor of the textbook. It's in its first edition. What I would strongly recommend is, if you are getting the textbook, get the Kindle format. You don't need a Kindle. You can get Kindle software on your PC, on your Mac, on your tablet, on your phone. It's very, very flexible in that regard. And the key thing, if you get the Kindle version, is that you'll get free updates for life. And also, $10 worth of Amazon Web Service credits as well. So if you think about it, we're actually paying you a penny to buy this book. It's such a good deal. It is not required. It's not required. You can do the course without the book. The book, very helpful, recommended by us, but not required. It's compared to other software engineering textbooks, I think you'll probably agree that it's an extraordinarily good value. They often run to hundreds of dollars. It's designed to try and be affordable. And of course, if you have some constraint where you, for whatever reason, you can't access Kindle, you are unable to, meet this financial demand, do get in contact and we can try and sort things, make exceptions in special cases, as has been done in the past. Oh yeah, one other thing is yeah, the textbook is in the process of being updated from Rails 3 to Rails 4 and Ruby 1.9 to Ruby 2. But those updates are not released yet. You'll get them if you buy the textbook. You'll get the updates as soon as they're out. But just be aware of that. Okay, just mention some of the other staff. We've got hundreds of community TAs, teaching assistants, who are helping us with the course. Really appreciate all of your hard work. We've got Raul and Zhao are our senior community TAs who've helping even more. I mean, they've been very involved with Adventures, and really appreciate all their effort. All of the TAs, including Raul, Zhao, and everybody else, are all alumni of this course. So they've all been through the course. They all know the challenges, and they are well prepared to help you out in the chats and the forums and so on. So do say hi to them and have fun talking to them. So wrapping up here. In the Berkeley class, which, as David and Amanda I think have already mentioned, is exactly the same in terms of the contents and materials. The one key difference is that Berkeley students do projects for nonprofits in parallel with the course, and they start, from the very beginning, and they get into teams of 5, and they start having regular meetings every week with a charity organization, a nonprofit organization, and then build a prototype using Ruby on Rails through the duration of the course, and they've done that many times over the last few years. And so I think hundreds of charities have been helped by groups of Berkeley students making systems like the Children's Hospital Notification Scheduler, Humane Society Pet Matchmaker, and I think the charities are it's giving something back. The charities are very enthusiastic about getting these prototypes made. Unfortunately, we don't have that sort of built into the MOOC in the way that we might like. And of course, also that you guys, you're working full time, you've got other things going on in your lives. You haven't necessarily got that time to get involved in a non-profit project. But if you do have the time, AgileVentures.org, which has been created by the alumni of the course, is there to sort of like do a worldwide version of this and put together non-profit organizations with groups of students who want to try out doing solutions for, to put into practice all of the things that we'll learn in the course about agile development of software as a service. So do check that out. I think doing a project on top of the course is the thing that really locks in the information and locks in the learning, and giving something back to the world is a fantastic thing to do. So finally, absolutely finally now. So one other thing that you'll notice in the videos coming up is that there's this talk of flashcards and colors and so on. I just want to explain that to you. So this is, I think, Professor Mazur at Harvard had this idea of peer instruction and sort of adjusting lectures so that rather than having sort of an hour and a half lecture where everybody's falling asleep, is that every sort of 10 minutes or so, like when you've completed a segment, like here's a concept, and the lecturer has provided that concept, is that the lecturer puts up a multiple choice question related to that concept to try and help people sort of assess whether they've learned the concept. And so the idea is that initially everybody votes, and everybody has these coloured cards. So you'll hear David and Amanda referring to this. So the students are in, and David and Amanda, when they do this, they've got like a lecture theatre full of like 200 plus students. And so the students will then hold up an orange or a yellow or a red card or what have you, corresponding to the different answers that are on the screen. You can't do that in the MOOC, but we've sort of structured it in edX. You'll see. Let's go on to an example of that. So what you'll see a lot of questions like this. This is like a practice run for us. So we can ask the question, what statement is true about the CS169 schedule? So all students must do a non-profit project, or all students must buy the textbook, or all students must follow on to do CS169.2, or you can follow the lectures at your own pace. So the question is, which one of these is true, and implying that the other ones are false. Now, if you were in Berkeley, you'd be holding up a coloured card. Here in edX, you can just sort of scroll along in the accordion at the top and see the next section. You'll find a place where you can select one of these different options, and then having done that, you can watch a follow-up video which will have an explanation of how that the students in Berkeley voted, or what have you. Do feel free to nip over to the chat room and discuss your thoughts about it. The particular idea from the Harvard professor is that after the students have voted once, is that they can all discuss the different options and then re-vote again, and you'll see that referred to a number of times. But okay, so think carefully about this question, and I'll see you in a minute on the other video that's coming up after you've voted on this. Yeah? See you in a moment. Bye for now.